Comparing Orlando, Florida to Denver, Colorado is like comparing two completely different countries. There are huge differences across multiple aspects, some that might make you completely throw out one city. But you need to know them up front, because maybe you're moving from one city to another, or debating it, or even considering either as a potential option. I'll tell you, it's like night and day here. So let's ask the question, is Denver a better choice? Let's find out. So the first thing that makes Denver very different compared to Orlando is the climate. If you haven't been to one or either location, Denver, Colorado is typically warm to hot in the summer months, very comfortable in the spring and fall, with some cool days here and there, and then cold in the winter. But the key here is the humidity. It's so dry in this part of the country that it makes both the hot days and cold days less intense. Plus, Denver has so many sunny days that it can make any temperature a lot more bearable. I'm not kidding. You can be outside in late winter, it's 40 or 50 degrees out, and you're in a t-shirt, especially if it's a sunny day. Now, I'd say that the spring and fall months are wonderful here because of the temperatures, but the peak tourism season in this part of the country is the summer. One of the reasons is because in the summertime, it's clear blue skies around 60% of the time, and it is pretty common to experience bright blue mornings followed then by some afternoon thunderstorms. Not necessarily every day, however, you may have to plan your day around it, especially if you're going out. Now, in the winter time, Denver gets snow, of course. However, the total amount of snow will vary depending on how close you are to the mountains. The closer you are, the higher likelihood of larger amounts of snow. Usually though, Denver only gets about a couple inches on average per month, and it's very common for the snow to melt away after a few days. But our snowiest month is in fact March. So there may be a situation in April where it's starting to feel like springtime, and then the next day, winter's back. Now, if we compare this to Orlando, it's vastly different. First off, Orlando is very humid, especially if you go between any time from May through October. It's gonna be like stepping into a sauna when you walk out of the airport. Believe me, I've experienced that. And it can be unbearable at times. With this humidity, there's also a lack of sunshine found in the summer months. It's almost the opposite of Denver here, with the summer months being cloudy anywhere from 50 to 70% of the time. So don't necessarily have expectations for a lot of sunshine, except for when it's the spring. With this too, plan for rain. In the summer, it rains about 4 to 6 inches per month, and around 2 inches per month in the winter. And then to top it all off, let's talk temperature. The average daily high in the summer is about 90 to 95 degrees, with the spring and fall being in the 70s to 80s. So at first glance, quite enjoyable. Not to mention in the winter when the lows are only around the 50s. Very different compared to Denver. But the kicker here is that the humidity will be consistent for most of the year, even reaching points in the summer of unbearable and miserable levels. So I'm going to argue the real difference between these two locations is the humidity. And then of course the fact that Denver actually experiences all 4 seasons. And that humidity might be a deal breaker for you. Because let's be honest, it's not the most enjoyable experience to walk outside and after a few minutes be borderline soaking wet. If that sounds like you and you've been considering a move to Colorado, reach out to me. I speak with people like you every week who are interested in a move and are doing as much research as possible before taking those first steps. My information is pinned below, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I look forward to hearing from you. But for now, let's get back to the video. Now, the next thing on our list we have to discuss is the cost of living comparison, because truth be told, this one might be a bit of a shocker. So starting with a general overview, Orlando is about 10% lower in cost of living compared to Denver. Transportation costs are around 11% lower. Food costs 7% lower. Entertainment 8%. Healthcare 8%. Alright, we get it. But it keeps going. Orlando's median home price for a single family home is $529,000 compared to Denver's median at $580,000. So Orlando is around 9% more affordable, and it wins in the rental market too. Denver's median rent is $2,100 a month across all property types and sizes, while Orlando's is $2,000. It's close, it's still within a margin of error, but Orlando generally is around 5% more affordable. But now let's compare another topic, taxes. Even though the cost of living is better in Orlando, are the taxes any better? How much of your income are you actually keeping? First, let's talk about sales tax. So Orlando has a 6.5% sales tax across the board, but Denver itself, in Denver County, has a 9.15% sales tax. Now for estimated property taxes, using the median price for a single family home we discussed, in Denver it's gonna be around $3,000 $1,000 a year. But for Orlando, at $529,000 for the median price, you're paying around $4,350 in taxes. So from a tax perspective, even though Florida is around 9% more affordable in the cost of real estate, you're effectively paying 45% more in property taxes. Now, maybe $1,500 a year is not necessarily a deal breaker here, especially if we look at income tax. Florida does not levy a state income tax. Colorado does. At a $75,000 a year salary, for example, the amount you'd owe in state taxes in Colorado would be $2,658 compared to Florida's unbearable $0. Kind of makes up for property taxes a little bit. So it's pretty clear Orlando, from a tax perspective, is the better choice. But there's one more thing I want to talk about that might be a bit of a surprise if you didn't already know, and that's toll roads. So Orlando seems to be built exclusively on toll roads, and being able right now in this video to estimate the amount you'd pay generally over a year, it's a little too difficult because it's completely dependent upon you, your commutes, and how frequently you drive. But to compare it, Denver really only has one toll road, and that's E470, which circumvents the entire eastern side of the city. It's a very common route to take if you're heading to the Denver International Airport. I'll throw a link below to toll road information for both cities, so you can do a little bit of estimation on the overall cost. But it's something worth mentioning if you're driving through Orlando, get ready to pay some tolls. Okay, so the last item on our list to discuss are the activities and relative things to do within either city. I won't lie, both cities and surrounding areas boast an impressive amount of things to do. However, there is a bit of variation here. Let's start with Denver. So one very notable thing compared to Orlando on this is that if you're in Denver, depending on the time of year, go to Empower Field and watch the Broncos play, or perhaps a Rockies game at Coors Field, or even a Nuggets or Avalanche game at Ball Arena, maybe even a Rapids game if you enjoy professional soccer. Denver definitely has the breadth of athletics here. But although the Denver nightlife, food, and entertainment scenes are all impressive, I'm gonna argue there's one thing about visiting the city that stands out above all the rest, and that's the outdoors. I talk about it in practically every video of mine because, well, just take a look. Denver is right at the beginning of the Rocky Mountains, and Colorado is famous for its numerous breathtaking locations where you can enjoy hiking, mountain biking, camping, fishing, horseback riding, tubing and kayaking, snowshoeing and skiing. I'll stop there, the list goes on. The main attraction to this part of the country is going to be the outdoors. You can visit Denver for Denver, absolutely, but you're missing out if you neglect everything to the west. Any time of the year, head up to places like Estes Park and Rocky Mountain National Park to witness some unbelievable mountains. I have a few photos from a recent trip of mine a few weeks ago. I say trip like it's a big thing. I went up on a Sunday morning to go hike. Or maybe go a few miles further into the mountains to places like Copper Mountain or Breckenridge, Colorado, to try the slopes there. Are you a big skier or snowboarder? If not, I strongly advise picking it up out here. It's great fun for yourself or the whole family. Or maybe you'd like to stay local. So then in the summer, head over to one of Denver's surrounding reservoirs and either spend the day out on a boat or rest along the beach. I know it's weird saying beach in a landlocked state, but we try our best. Or even just go for a morning or afternoon walk to get a little space from the city. Denver does have so many spots to enjoy. You'll have to watch a few of my other videos to know where to look. Okay, so Denver's main focus is on the outdoors, but what about Orlando? Well, Orlando does have a ton more lakes than Denver. So if you're buying a waterfront property, you can definitely capitalize on spending the days out on the boat, hopefully when you catch some sunny weather. But swimming in these lakes? Not so sure. One thing Orlando has that Denver definitely doesn't: alligators. Now, I'm not going on record here saying that you're gonna be fighting alligators right out of the gate from the Orlando airport. But last time I checked, all of Denver's dinosaurs have been long gone buried in the ground, not potentially walking across your front yard. Anyway, back to business. One aspect that does make Orlando different is that it is a well-known tourist city. It has Disney World, Universal Studios and Islands Adventure, and SeaWorld, to name a few. I casually say Disney World as if it was just one localized park. It's totally not. There are so many parks and resorts in the area. It's honestly quite impressive. Now, with such a large amusement park presence, I don't want to say that Orlando is solely famous enormous for these companies. But Disney does attract alone 50 million people a year to the city. And Universal Studios attracts roughly 10 million people a year. So, assuming no overlap, roughly 60 million people visit Orlando for these parks every single year. The equivalent of the entire population of California and New York coming to Orlando. So yes, it's not the only thing to do here in Orlando, but let's be honest, it's a huge attraction. So comparing this to Denver, I'd argue that Denver's attraction is to the surrounding environment and more focused on spending time in the outdoors, while Orlando's is much more about seeing what the city has built for its residents and tourists through its amusement parks. Now, I'm not knocking Orlando for this. I've been to these parks and they're honestly quite impressive. It's enjoyable and I definitely recommend going at least once, if you can justify the price. But the final point comes down to what you're looking for in a city. Does the idea of a tourist city sit well with you? Or are you looking for a city that at least has the opportunity to enjoy some solace and time away from our urban utopias? Let me know below which city got more of your attention. Obviously, living in Colorado myself, I do have a bit of a bias, but I will include a few videos on some of the best things to do here, so you can get a few more ideas about what's out in Colorado. I think you'll enjoy it. This is Life on the Front Range. I'll see you there.